Hi, do you practice jazz piano but you're not happy with how it sounds? If so, chances are that you have yet to do it, or you need to do more of what I'm about to show you today, how to transcribe. As a jazz piano teacher for many years, I have met many students who are not happy with how they sound, especially when it comes to improvisation and ideas for improvisation, and more often than not, aspiring jazz piano students don't know how they can sound better because they still need to do more of the things we all need to do to sound good, and that is to copy from others. You see, nothing comes out of nothing, which also goes for jazz. Jazz is an evolution, and to be able to play jazz well, it is not enough to just play chords, scales, licks and tricks. Instead, what we must do to grow our music to the next level is to copy from others, and we'll have to do that a lot, especially if you're relatively new to playing jazz piano. But to be clear, the end goal for all of us should be to be able to express our music in our unique way, so we don't want to sound like somebody else in the long run. Copying ideas from the masters is just a means to an end. I've copied so many over the years, and I still do it from time to time, and I do that to get new ideas that I would not have come up with myself. So if you want to play jazz piano well, you know what to do. You have to copy from the masters. Let me share with you now how I have been doing just that. That was a snippet from Waltz for Debbie, my version, and I would never be able to play just like that if I did not also copy Bill Evans note by note. So the benefits of copying from others are huge. So I cannot underestimate enough the importance of copying from others. So, when we know that copying from others is so extremely important, how do you do it? That's the question. So, I'm going to show you now how I do it. So, the first thing I do is that I decide if I want to write down or just copy by ear. Usually, I just copy by ear and learn it by memory. It is not so hard to do if you do it the right way. Sometimes I have been writing down solos in great detail, but that is extremely time-consuming, and of course, you can learn a lot if you do that. I remember spending one summer vacation just copying Keith Jarrett playing The Autumn Leaves. So usually I would recommend that you just copy by ear, but now try to copy everything in great detail, also the left hand and all the notes that's been played. If you find any recording, you can see that most of them includes many rounds of solos, and that can be also very time consuming if you're going to do everything. So in my example, I just copied some rounds of Bill Evans' Waltz for Debbie. The second thing that you should do is to decide the tools that you're going to use. Of course, you should use headphones. I'm connecting now the music from my computer to my headphones, and I can hear both the grand piano here as well as sound from the computer. And then, of course, there are some different apps that you should use, and I'm using an app called Transcribe. This is what it looks like. There's another app called AnyTune that do almost the same thing. But Transcribe is the program that I like the most, and that's the one that I've been using for many years. If you want to, you can download the Transcribe by following the link in the description. Step 3 is to find the right balance. I see that a lot of my students, when I transcribe together with them, they like to keep the music too loud from the playback, or the piano is too loud. It's really important that you find the right balance. And by the way, all of these things I'm mentioning today, you can also find that in the summary that you can find below. Step number 4 is when you have decided what to copy. Now the time is to listen to the recording over and over and over. And when I was a student back in the days at the Jazz Conservatory, I listened to recordings over and over and over, so I kept them like on a repeat for many hours. But I suggest listening to whatever you're going to copy at least 30 minutes before you even start to copy. So let me show you now how I copy. This is step number 5. So the first thing to do is to create a loop. And usually you can just mark a loop like this. So now this will loop over and over. And now the question is, what is being played? So what I suggest that you do is that you listen to the top note first, which is this one. I know that because I've played this before. But I can also hear it, by the way. And then also listen to the bottom note. So now in this case I would probably zoom in even further on this one, right? So you got to find out what exactly is being played. And now I suggest that you try to sing the top note, then you try to sing the bottom note, and then you try to find it on the piano. So what I would do in this case is to loop this over and over and try to play together with the music like this. Just the first note, and then the bottom note, which is this one. By the way, sometimes you can also find recordings that is not 100% in tune with your piano, and that's how it is in this case. I would probably adjust that a little bit. So now I adjusted it down some cents. Anyway, now we have found the top note as well as the bottom note. Now is the time to find out what's in between. In this case, let's listen carefully. You can hear that he plays a chord somewhere here, right? And also now I slowed down the tempo slightly. So now it's on 50%. And now it's just time to experiment and try to copy and make it as accurate as you can compared to the first chord. I can definitely hear this one. This is hard work and it's very demanding for your ears, but I think I got this first chord now. It's like that. So what I want to say now is that you should try to get it as close to the original as possible. That's the important part of what you do here. But sometimes the original is far off, so it's really hard to copy in great detail. Maybe you don't hear everything. And this is a journey, so if you cannot hear everything well right now, you will probably be able to hear a lot more further down the road. At least that's how it was for me. I can now copy whatever I want, which is very liberating, but sometimes you don't want to get all of the mistakes made by the pianist that you're copying, so you should take that into consideration. Another thing I want to say is that when you are copying from others, it's not only what you're hearing, right? It's also a combination of what you know. So if you are skilled in music theory, it's likely going to be a little bit easier to understand what's going on. For example, Bill Evans, I know that he played a lot of A and B voicings. Chords like that, right? That's a B voicing, by the way. Since I know that, if I hear this sound, I know that most likely that's the chord that he's playing. So it's a combination of what you know and what you hear. Another tip I want to give you is that you should focus on getting the first bar correct. So if you try to get it as correct as you can or as close to the original as you can, you do that before you move on. I see a lot of my students over the years, they have come back to me and they've shown me their workflow, and it seems like they're moving on far too fast and they complain, I cannot remember what I have been playing, right? So I would spend a lot of time copying each individual bar and try to connect them. In this case I would play bar 1 and then go to bar 2 and then try to combine that and try to play on top of the music, which is really important. And that brings me to the next step. So now you should try to play through the whole composition or the improvisation that you're copying. Play from A to Z and try to make it as accurate as you can compared to the original. What sometimes can happen is that there is one small snippet during the solo, for example, which is far too difficult for you to play, and that's okay, right? So try to slow down the tempo. It's better to play everything in 70% accurately than trying to play in 100% and fail a lot. And what I also like to do is to try to imagine that I'm playing like the original pianist that I'm copying. So if I'm copying Keith Jarrett, I try to imagine that I pretend to be like him for a while, or Bill Evans, or whomever it is. That can also help you a lot, I think. The really important thing is that once you have copied everything that you intend to copy, then I suggest you play together with the music over and over and over and over. So if I was to copy this tune, I would play together with the original music many times before I call it a day. Once you have made your way through whatever you have decided to copy, you should also be sure that you can play it without the original music. Now it's time to play it together with the good old metronome, or you can create your own play-along track. I also like to record myself playing whatever I have copied from the masters. That way I get a sense of closure and I can mark the project as completed and move on to something else. It is fun, fulfilling and straightforward compared to many other things that we need to do to practice to improve. Another important thing is to test some of the ideas that you have copied into tunes such as different jazz standards or your own tunes. Every time I have copied from one of the jazz masters, I feel uplifted, but when I improvise and play anything else, suddenly it starts sounding way better. At least that's my experience. Anyway, whenever you transcribe or copy by ear, no matter what, having a good ear is not only practical but very important. And if you find it hard to hear the details in the music, I recommend that you check out the Jazz Pianist's ear training course I made specifically for us who plays jazz piano. If you're interested, you can find a link to that in the description. You can also find a link to a free summary of how you can copy by ear and transcribe, and where it can be a good start depending on what you already know. In the free summary, I will also link up some useful tools that I did not mention in this lesson. One last thing. Pablo Picasso once said, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." I think that point is spot on, and there is nothing wrong in getting inspiration and steal and copy ideas from other musicians, and even make some of these ideas to your own. Anyway, with that, practice a lot, take care of your music, and I will see you soon.